Well, there we are. I had my Sunday sermon all sort of worked out on Friday, and it was going to be something completely different to what we now need to talk about, because there's only one story in town, and it revolves around the big beast of Conservative politics. Yes, Boris is gone. Some will delight. Long live Boris. Others will alight and scream and shout. What we do know is that Boris will continue to shock and awe. And he will continue to, I suspect, surprise us all. As every day, almost every hour goes by, another MP is speaking up for him. We've got resignations. 3 have already happened, including Boris himself, but others being talked about. I mean, where does this end? And to what purpose? So we've got Nadine Dorries has gone, Nigel Adams has gone. There's another 4, yes, another 4 rumoured. Crikey, very soon we'll have a 5-a-side football team. We might even get to a full 11-a-side if we're not careful. What does this actually mean? Does it matter? Do you care? Will it trigger a loss of confidence in the smooth, slick Rishi Sunak? And we're going to know something in the next 2 days. Would Boris unbelievably stand as a Conservative candidate in the by-election for Mid-Bedfordshire? Because apparently the Tory nominations for that by-election will close at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Or, unbelievably, could he stand as an independent Conservative in that by-election? What would that mean? Just imagine. Who knows at the moment? But what is clear is that civil war has essentially broken out into the open. There's mutiny in the ranks. Sunak has pretty much lost control. You've got number 10 saying that Boris's teams and claims of breaches of the deal that was reached last week in some secret meeting between Boris and Sunak is just flat out lies, and its attempt by Boris to burn the house down. And the Sunday Times that proclaims that actually this mutiny is falling flat and it's absurd, when I think that headline is absurd, when you can clearly see in the Mail on Sunday, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Better doff our hats to Sir Jacob when he says that actually quite clearly Boris could be a future leader of the Conservative Party. No doubts whatsoever in his mind. Boris's team saying that Sunak's tried to kill off Boris. They're using the example of the referral of the diary entries straight to the police 3 weeks ago, the mess over this, the COVID breaches, and then the huge row over the WhatsApp messages, the Cabinet Office refusing to send Boris's messages over, all of this. I mean, it's just sort of internecine warfare between the two of them. And that's the question I posed this morning. I mean, do you want Boris back? But here's the thing, and Isabel Oakeshott talked about this a little bit earlier with David Bull. Is it possible that Sunak's best man, who happens to be his political secretary in number 10, one James Forsyth, a former writer for The Spectator, is it possible that he took 5 names off that honours list of peerages some 6 months ago, before it even went to the House of Lords Appointments Committee? Did he do that as under orders from Sunak, or did he do it because actually he wasn't very happy that there was no mention in Boris's list of Allegra Stratton, who used to work for Sunak and then was moved to Boris's office, and she took the fall right at the beginning of Partygate when she was involved in that video that seemed to be sort of mocking parties and mocking the rules that all of us were burdened under. So do you think that's possible? That's the story that is beginning to do the rounds. What is clear is that the relationship between Boris Johnson and the current Prime Minister is more toxic, and this is unbelievable to consider, it's more toxic than the relationship between Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. It's way more toxic than the relationship between Margaret Thatcher and Ted Heath. What that tells you, those of a certain generation, including myself, I hasten to add, is that things are really, really bad within the upper echelons of the Conservative Party, within these two camps. What actually matters is what's going on in the running of the country. And I think it's pretty clear to most people that the 5 famous pledges that Sunak came out with at the beginning of the year, he's failing on every single one. The boats are not being stopped. I reckon at least 200 have crossed this morning. I'm told there are some 5 boats who've already crossed. You can imagine there's probably more on the way. The wind is favourable over the next few days, which means there'll be many, many more. Yes, it's the beginning of that season. Waiting lists in the NHS, they're up, not down, as Sunak pledged. The national debt is up, not down, as Sunak pledged. The economy is not growing, it's flatlining. Although, in fairness, it is better than the Eurozone, which is in recession. And inflation, well, let's give him some credit where credit's due. That is a little bit down on the start of the year. It's probably the best chance he's got of meeting one pledge. He targeted that it would halve during 2023. But most of the items are completely out with Sunak's control. The only thing that's in his control, he's done nothing about. He could cut consumer taxes to get inflation down, but no, he hasn't done that. He's increased taxes instead. My contention to you is that leadership, it's about motivating, it's about infusing, it's about driving forward, demanding performance from a team, if you're allowed to by the civil service, of course. It's about creating a vision that everybody buys into. Whatever we think, Sunak's a nice guy, speaks very well. No one claims that he's a visionary. In fact, he was head boy of Winchester School as a teenager. And in my view now, he's head boy of the School of Westminster Wallies. That's what I think he is. There's no vision. There's just a sort of bean counter-ish, managerial, boring approach. Where does this go for everybody? It's hard to know. What are the implications, though, for actually running the country? You've got MPs running for cover. You've got the power-hungry folk on either side. Think of the time and the effort and the brain power, the resources spent on dealing with all of this nonsense. Not very successfully. I mean, turning a crisis from a drama. All this is wasted time when actually we want them to get on with making the country work better, because it doesn't work at the moment. Public services are absolute shambles. Many people still on strike. Good luck getting a train on a reliable time on any particular day. We know, basically, nothing works. Why aren't they focusing on making those things happen? Surely that's what people want. It's pretty clear to me that Boris, he loves being at the centre of the attention. He'd love to make a comeback. He's always believed in his own track record of being a winner, without doubt. But there's a potential here that this consumes the party of government over the coming months, at a time when we need the place to be run better. How did this happen? I mean, how did a successful, I think most people would say he was a successful mayor of London for 2 terms. You know, he fought the referendum, he won that along with others. And then he fought the general election. He technically made us leave the European Union. He got a massive majority, 80-seat majority, the biggest since the 1980s for the Conservatives. You look back, I mean, there was that prospect that he would be a Prime Minister for 10 years plus. How did it happen that a mere 2.5 years on from that, he was removed as Prime Minister, and then, just another 9 months on, he's actually he's gone as an MP. Binned, ditched it. Just quite incredible. Ousted, either by his own volition, his own peak. I mean, if anybody who had said that was going to be the direction of travel back in December 19, you'd have been taken away by the men in white coats. There have been serious questions about your sanity. And we have to be honest. Boris, bless him, he has been his own worst enemy. I mean, he could have been that long-term Prime Minister that drove significant change. But then the challenges he faced, the Remainers that wanted him out. And I would suspect if one's trying to be impartial about it, what he didn't do was read the room. He failed to read the room and adapt and adjust and get really solid, great people around him, which I think he did do, much more so, as Mayor of London. Whatever your view of Boris, good, bad, indifferent, it's pretty clear to me that the blob and the establishment and the globalists, they've won the day so far because they've forced him out of one of the most significant politicians of a generation. And as I say, whatever your view of Boris, you have to accept he has been a hugely significant figure in politics for a generation. And the question, therefore, is that the end of him? Will he be back? But the bigger question is, so who's in charge here? Is it the voters? Is it the blob? Is it the establishment? Is it the global elite? And my big question to you is, does the country want him back? Or do we want boring managerialism from the likes of Sunak or Starmer or someone else? How significant a moment is this in trust in our democracy, in our democratic processes? That is my question to you, and that's what I want you to ring me on 0344 499 1000 or text us 87222 using the word talk, or tweet us at talkTV. And with that, folks, here endeth my Sunday sermon.